Welcome to this very special episode of the Gemstone podcast. I'm Abigail and I'm joined today by the lovely Louise. How are you, Louise?
Yeah, I'm good, thank you. How are you? This is my first podcast.
Very first podcast. And Lou is joining us today. Lou's the marketing executive for us here at Gemporia. And I was just saying before, I kind of think of you as the journalist of the marketing department.
To be honest, I love speaking to people.
Yeah.
And I love asking them questions and just finding out what makes them tick, what they're passionate about, what they love. And sharing it with people.
Yeah, so any body of writing that you kind of see within anything that we do in marketing, any messaging, all of the blogs that we write on the website is all Lou. So for International Women's Day, Lou has been on a mission to find some of the most influential female voices within the industry and kind of just ask them about topics that we want to hear about, topics that we align on. So we have a very special podcast episode filled with some of these influential women. So I'd love if we could kind of, first of all, talk about why it is that you wanted to do this project and what kind of drew you to these women that we're spotlighting in this episode.
Yeah, so this International Women's Day project is all about highlighting the influential women that are reshaping our industry right now. For a long time, the gemstone industry has been very traditionally male dominated, and we want to put a spotlight on the women all around the world that are making meaningful change in the industry. And we've got a lot of interesting people.
We have, absolutely. So first of all, we've got Lyssa King. So Lyssa is one of the founders of Diamonds to Kandeh and has built Land's Collection.
Yeah. So she and her husband Benjamin own and sort of founded Land's Collection, like you said, and they work out of Canadian diamond mines up in the Northwest Territories. As experts in the field, they're really, really passionate about not just the diamonds themselves, but also what Canada stands for in terms of sustainability and responsible sourcing.
And for any of our TV customers will have actually met Ben and Lyssa before, may have a Land's Collection piece, so they may be well aware of her. So we're going to speak to her in a little bit and get her opinion on some really interesting topics that we're passionate about.
Oh my gosh, I'm actually wearing a Land's Collection piece.
Oh my god, what a plug, Lou. So we also spoke to Cristina. Now, Christina's a really, really interesting character. Cristina is actually heavily involved within responsible mining. She's an expert that's worked within human rights with a focus on supply chains. So she's a great person to kind of speak to for our industry in particular, to kind of dig deep into those like ethical and sustainable issues.
Yeah, so she is she's a sustainability leader, and she's also the co-founder of Moyo Gems, which focuses on benefiting people in sort of artisanal mining, small scale mining, and women in mining as well. She's very passionate about that, and she's very passionate about educating people on just how we can be the best version of the gemstone industry that we can.
Absolutely. And then we also spoke to Esther. Well, Lou also spoke to Esther, who runs an NGO in Sierra Leone with a focus on women's rights within mining. So really gives us a real insight into perspectives in female mining.
Yeah, so she's not like anybody I've ever spoken to before, ever. She's such a fascinating woman. She's so passionate and she's so influential. Having grown up in Sierra Leone, she's seen firsthand. She's been in the mining industry for as long as she can remember within mining communities in Sierra Leone, and she is the perfect person in the position she's in to advocate for women in mining.
Absolutely. So the first topic that I wanted to kind of delve into, and I definitely want to get into the International Women's Day of it all, but for me, lab-grown diamonds is such an interesting topic. It's my kryptonite. I love it. I love talking about it. I think it's so interesting to hear kind of really diverse perspectives, and my mind changes about it all the time. So first we're going to hear from Lyssa and her opinion on this, which I thought was so interesting, has really influenced my opinion. But she spoke a little bit about how lab-grown diamonds have flooded the market. But then also Cristina and Esther, it was really interesting to talk about how this could actually be damaging for mining communities across the world. So let's hear from Lyssa.
Lab-grown's not going away. I think we can all agree on that. Right? It's here to stay. What I do think is going to go away is the engagement ring business. And I know a lot of people will disagree with me on that. But I believe in men, and I believe in chivalry, and I believe in princes and princesses. And I just do not believe that a man is going to feel good about giving a $400 engagement ring. I just don't. I think there is a bottom, and I think that men are not going to go there. And I think when it gets to the point, and it's getting there right now, I think when it gets to the point of going to Walmart here in the US, and I don't know what your Walmart is over there, but I think when you get to the point of a 2 carat solitaire being $499, that is not going to resonate. And at some point with the prices we're seeing on the internet, of online retailers going as low as they can possibly go on where lab grown prices are, there is a bottom. I mean, it is starting to get there. And I just believe there is going to be a point where men are going to say, I can't propose with this ring, and once it gets to that place, I think that is where lab grown is going to become fashion. And I think it's starting to get there. I am starting to hear more and more from our retailers, more and more natural calls. I mean, the business is picking up so quickly, and it's starting to pick up more and more with the 1 carat business got really soft for a while. Even in natural, it was 3 carats, 2 carats, 2.5 carats, 3 carats. The 1 carats got really quiet for a while. We're starting to see the 1 carat business come back. And that is what warms my heart, because that's, that is your that is your 20-something engagement business, is a 1 carat client. And when that went away, my prince and princess philosophy started to get a little shaky, and I started to worry, but it's coming back because, that 20-something, he doesn't want to spend $500. He may only have 5,000, but he wants to spend 5,000. He wants to feel good about what he's putting on her finger, if it's going to last forever.
I thought Lyssa's points on this was so interesting, kind of talking about the magic behind engagement rings, and her prince and princess theory was so interesting. But when you spoke to Cristina and Esther, they actually highlighted a little bit more, didn't they, how damaging it can be to mining communities?
Yeah, and this was one of the main reasons why both Esther and Cristina are perfect people to speak to as part of this project, because it's a side of the lab grown industry and that a lot of people don't talk about and a lot of people don't know about, particularly customers. And I know sort of ethics it influences a lot of people's buying choices at the moment. And it was just they both have really, really interesting takes. And it kind of highlights that no matter what you hear or read about lab grown stones and the lab grown market, there are so many more factors at play than people know about. So it's important for them to highlight that.
My name is Cristina Villegas. I am a responsible gemstone sourcing expert. I've been working in the sector about 15 years, focused on gems and jewelry inputs, and in the broader mining sector for about 20. So I have a human rights background, but also I think as an economist, and I help companies think through very highly practical strategies to make sure their supply chains are the best they can be. With regard to lab grown, yes, I think there's just a place for it, but in terms of making jewelry more accessible, so like in fashion jewelry. But I am deeply concerned that what happened to diamonds will happen to colored gemstones. And whenever I talk to certain parts of industry, they always laugh and they said, well, colored gems have been available in lab form for 100 years. I said, well, lab-grown diamonds were available in the 1950s. And look what's happened now. And it's because many reasons, but I think it's because of the cost fell so dramatically for lab-grown stones, and the quality increased dramatically for lab-grown diamonds. But also, I think the diamond industry failed to address its blood diamond associations for so long, and thought that time would solve that problem and not engagement. And for many consumers that I've talked to, my friends who admit they bought lab-grown diamonds, they tell me that they buy it because they get more carat for their dollar, more carat for their pound. But also, they know it's not a conflict diamond. And I worry that the same thing will happen to colored gemstones if these sustainability issues are not engaged upon, that our whole sector could collapse, like what we're seeing in diamonds. And in the colored gemstone space it's actually even more human-centered than diamonds, because of who produces it. So, that 70 to 90% of producers for colored gemstones, those are artisanal and small-scale miners. Those are everyday people, the poorest of the poor, people who are most affected by climate change, who have the fewest options, in their livelihood choices. There are not always big factories to have a job, and people don't always want to live near big factories, right? So I worry a lot about jobs moving from the global south to the global north, and what that means from a social justice perspective. And my ire gets piqued when I'm full of ire when lab grown stones of any variety claim environmental and social benefits, just because they're created in a lab, because they're not being specific about those benefits, and they're not also realizing or acknowledging the enormous positive impacts that responsibly sourced gems can have. So I think for lab grown gems, I think they need to be more clear about their own environmental and social impacts. They have a lot of energy use and a lot of things to work on their side. So they have a transparency obligation on their side, and their own sustainability stories to lean into. But I think the onus is also on the natural stone community to start leaning into some of these issues, or else they might become weaponized against them.
Lab-grown diamond, where did this come from? Is it another strategy to actually destroy the resources that Africa have, so that we'll not get the maximum benefit that we should get? Is that another strategy? So these are things we need to look for. But one of the things I was expecting, that African leaders should come together and begin to speak on this issue and begin to, talk something around this issue, because why do you even call it diamond? Why do you call it diamond? Diamond has a process, and it's a natural something. It's not lab growing. It's lab growing. It's because something else. It's not diamond. So these are all issues discussions to be taken about when we talk about sustainability.
Such an interesting perspective there from Esther and Cristina. We hear a lot kind of in the Western world that we shouldn't use natural diamonds because they're so damaging, and that lab-grown diamonds are actually more ethical because we know that they're not blood diamonds, and that kind of perspective. But when you look at the flip side of it, it's really interesting to kind of see that we've kind of just got a handle on traceability. We've just got a handle on beneficiation within small mining communities, artisanal mining. And now the market is moving away from that when they're kind of just benefiting from their land. So it's just such a really interesting perspective. Now, to touch on International Women's Day, Esther and Cristina were obvious choices for you, Lou, weren't they? Can you talk a little bit about why you chose these two influential females in the industry to talk about this topic specifically?
Yeah, well, they were chosen mainly for not just the work that they do for the gemstone industry, but the work that they do for women, just as a whole. They've both been named in 2024 as one of the 100 influential women in the mining industry, and Cristina mainly for, she's so passionate and she's so dedicated to helping people, kind of artisanal miners and small scale miners. And a lot of those miners are women. She actually said to me when I spoke to her that a third of all miners are women. Did you know
crazy.
that?
That was crazy to me when she said that. It's a really, really surprising figure, and I don't think a lot of people would know that. It feels like such a male-dominated industry, but really it's made for women, almost by women.
Yeah, exactly. And you would think so too for a sector that's, you know, kind of female focused. Of course, men wear jewelry as well, but it's a very sort of, it's a field that's dominated by women in terms of the consumer. So it's a really, really important point to touch on. And Esther, it was kind of a no-brainer. You know, she's like I said, she's grown up in Sierra Leone. She's the founder and director of Women on Mining and Extractives, which is a program, an NGO created purely to give women a voice. And she talks a lot about how women in the mining industry should be involved in the decision-making process and should be, because they're the ones doing the work. So yeah, it's a really important message to get across.
Absolutely. Let's hear from Cristina and hear a little bit about the work that she's been doing, and also from Esther from her on-the-ground experience in Sierra Leone.
You've actually been recognised as one of the 100 most inspiring women in mining as well, which is amazing. So what does that recognition mean to you?
I was really touched when I won that award. And I think what I'm known for is focusing on women along with supply chain and making sure they're no longer invisible. And you know, the award to me meant that my own work was not invisible, that my own work was seen by others and recognized by others. Yeah, for the last 10 years or more, I've been really leaning into building women mining associations across the African continent in particular. And that really centered in East Africa, because I recognize that unless we strengthen local leadership organizations like women in mining associations, we're not going to have the strong allies that we need to change the conditions in the mines. And yes, the question is, okay, why not ask men? Well, why not ask women? That's that's who have been historically neglected, pushed out physically from the mines, not financed. And I found some remarkable women leaders who wanted things to change, who had the clarity and passion to make that happen, but who needed some help on the kind of organizational front. Yeah, women miners, they face enormous amounts of risks. Enormous amounts of challenges. They, like most women around the world, a lot is on their plate because they're women. So in areas where they can't control their own fertility for many reasons, access or law, they might have between 5 and 10 kids each, and then also have household responsibilities. And that household might still be struggling, or they might be struggling because of just the realities of like wages for like the man who's bringing it in, or it might be a female-headed household, which is happening more and more around the world.
Mining started a very long time in Sierra Leone, since 1930, and we grew up seeing mining activity going, but we saw the gender gap. Women we are not included in decision-making processes. Women are excluded when it comes to share in terms of mining benefit. Women were not actually in the spotlight when it comes to mining. It was classified as the men's domain. So this organization was formed to bridge that gap, to break that stereotype in the minds of the women as well, to know that they are supposed to be in the space. They are supposed to speak when it's not convenient for them. They are supposed to be in the decision-making platform to make to air their own side of any decision.
A reason why Lou has kind of picked the pool of women that she has is because she really wanted to choose a group of women whose values really aligned with us at Gemporia. And one of the most important kind of strategies that we use is our mind to market strategy. This not only ensures traceability, which I know is super important for people like Cristina, who really has a handle on that supply chain from start to finish, making sure that we have kind of ethical stones, we know exactly where they're coming from, but also for people like Lyssa, who worked on the ground in Canada at Ekati and the Gaucho Quay mine, kind of ensuring that traceability from start to finish. So we're going to hear a little bit from Lyssa about why this is so important for beneficiation reasons.
Yeah, so, we moved up to Yellowknife in 2021 with this mine to market plan or strategy to work with the mines directly and to be able to help them and to be able to be that conduit for Canadian diamonds to be more directly available to the consumer. We're a small boutique manufacturer. We've never proclaimed to be anything more than that. We consult, we help with the government, we help the mines, we have a lot of large retail clients that we work with to help them work with the different mining companies up there. The mining companies and the larger retailers, at this point where the market is at, those conversations have to take place directly. The more people that are in the middle, where the diamonds are going all over the country, or all over the world, I should say, globally, and getting cut, and the profits are staying in other countries, that profit needs to stay in Canada. Those jobs need to stay in Canada. The mines need to have more of that profit, because as natural diamond profits, or the rough profits, continue to go down more and more as natural diamond prices continue to get driven down more and more and more due to lab-grown pricing, driving that market down. If we cannot keep that profit more with the mines, they're not going to be able to sustain the level of what it takes to keep mining operational.
Yeah, that was such an interesting point from Lyssa about how keeping kind of the financial benefits from an industry in the area that it's coming from. So making sure that the money is staying in Canada, the jobs are staying in Canada. One thing that she said in the interview was that, is it 40% of everybody that works at the Gaucho Quay mines are Indigenous people?
Yeah, I think it was about kind of, maybe, it depends on the mine, because obviously she works out of both Ekati and Gaucho Quay mainly. But yeah, I think it was roughly kind of about 36-38% Indigenous, which is really important because obviously mine to market, we know how much it benefits the consumer in terms of traceability and in terms of cost. But like you say, and like Lyssa so rightly said, it's the less people that are in the middle, the more of the profits of the diamond yield stay within Canada, and the the jobs stay in Canada, like you say. And when it comes to having such a large workforce of Indigenous people and local people, it just gets across how important it is.
Mm-hmm. And absolutely as well, you know the on the ground stories that are coming from these mines as well. Like Lyssa and Cristina have kind of told us the little tidbits that you kind of don't hear unless you go to the mine. Lou raised a really good point. Jake Thompson, you'll know, he's one of our gem experts here at Gemporia. If we don't know, we don't go.
Yeah.
And Cristina has some great stories, not just from Moyo Gems, the organisation that she set up, but also some stories that she's gathered from going to these artisanal mines. So let's hear from her.
I think the beauty of artisanal and small scale mining is that it is a lot of everyday people just trying to make a living, and there can be some beautiful sustainability stories therein. But unless companies engage, they don't know.
It goes much deeper than just like you're saying. I mean, when I was up there the last time, they did a fire dance, right? And so they lit the fire, and there was over 100 of the workers who woke up early from sleeping to come outside at 4:00 in the afternoon and with, Indigenous led, prayed to the land, thanked the land for the gift that they were giving them, and not just, this was all volunteer. There was no extra credit. There was no bonus, but truly because they believe that what's coming from the earth is a gift. And this was not, of the over 100 people, it was maybe 50% indigenous, and they had been raised to do these dances and prayers to the earth. And over, the other 50% was people who truly like come alongside them and realize that their livelihood is from the land, and they appreciate being able to experience these opportunities to thank the land and give back. It was a beautiful, I mean, I was in tears. It was beautiful to watch, because I think when you experience that level of appreciation for what the land brings them, it makes the sacrifice they give of living there 2 weeks and being away from their families and not being able to go to piano recitals and soccer games and all the things they sacrifice to live that lifestyle. You kind of understand that give and take.
Again, we spoke previously about how we wanted our kind of values to really align with this pool of influential women. So the last kind of topic we wanted to touch on is their ethical and sustainable practices. It's really interesting. You'll see in the next few clips that all of the women that you spoke to, Lou, all kind of said, it's great what we're doing, but the industry could go further. So we're going to hear now from Lyssa a little bit about the lengths that they go to in Canada specifically. You may have seen this previously from when she's been on air with us talking about kind of the sustainable practices, or maybe on our YouTube from our Canada documentary. But it's just so amazing how much time and effort they put into the ethical and sustainable practices in these specific mines.
The links that they go to for safety of their workers, environmental protection, what animals are on. They'll tell you every animal that has been on property that week, any precautions that are being taken for those animals, if the caribou came through, what roads aren't being allowed to be used that week because the caribou might be coming through. I mean, all of that is discussed before you can get off the bus to go into the building to get your room. I mean, it's so that level of detail blew my mind the first time I went up there. Now that I've been up there so many times and gone to the mines, you just get used, like that's just normal. But then when I see how things run other places, I realize the level of intensity and detail that they go to in Canada in every area.
It's really interesting to hear these points from Lyssa. It seems like they really do go above and beyond, don't they?
Yeah, I think she raised a really, really important point where you say, if you look at how mining is done in the rest of the world, and then you look at how mining is done in Canada, she just talked about how crazy the difference is, from everything to sort of land reclamation to responsible sourcing, for kind of how much they care for their workers as well, and the people that, live on the land where the mining takes place. It's just, it's something that every country in the world can learn from. And seeing how much of a pioneer Canada actually is in the responsible mining space and the kind of sustainability space, it shows that it is possible.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's why Christina's a really exciting person to speak to as well, because she's worked with so many different companies, basing herself in so many different mines all across the world. So we'll see in a minute her opinion on sustainable practices and how important it is to her in a minute.
And I think a lot of people imagine blood diamond conditions when they think of mining. And I still get people asking me if the Sierra Leone war is still happening. And that was over 20 years ago. Actually longer than that. But I think there's still a view of developing countries as these very dangerous places. And I think that's based on just lack of travel. And also sometimes it's a little bit racist. So I have to kind of educate people on who these miners are. And yes, there are situations where it is a terrible situation. That happens still. But more commonly, these mine sites are full of everyday people who used to be mechanics or are doing this on the weekends to make money for their kids' school fees. Or they are village women who saw some other women mining and they realize they can get cash. And so they start mining whenever they have time. And so, and also different mineral deposits can look very differently. So I remember I was in Malawi, and I was like in a rural area, and there was like these like beautiful hills, and it was in a maize field, form of corn, and I was wondering why I was brought to this maize field. I was like, is this where it ends? And then, but it had just rained, and I saw all these villagers kind of walking through the fields, and the person I was with said, "Look down." I was confused. I was like, "Okay," I looked down, and she pulls out these garnets from the soil, and these garnets had come to the surface because the soil around it had eroded because of the rain, and I was stunned. And then I started realizing that all these people going up and down the maize fields were actually looking for garnets. And it was a weekend. They're just doing it on their own time. And it was like this like Hollywood scene of like beauty. And I remember talking to one of my artist friends about what had happened, and she's like, "These are rainwatered garnets." And I was like, "I love a jewelry industry. You all are so creative." You know, if we end up having a traceability project here, I'm gonna call it that. It wasn't the right time at that particular point to do rainwater garnets, but I always remember that story just because I was so shocked. So mines can be these deep underground locations with no ventilation and no toilets and be horrific. They can be open pit mines that were dug by a few neighbors, and they share the risks and they share the rewards. It can be a field of maize where people are looking for garnets that have popped up because of the rain.
It's so interesting to kind of see the different points from all these different women in different perspectives that have experienced different things. And I feel like I've really learned a lot today within today's episode. How did you feel speaking to them, Lou?
Do you know what? It was probably one of the most rewarding things I think I've ever worked on, really, in terms of a project. Just hearing not just how passionate they are about their own work, but about how the work that they do benefits so many people. Like the work doesn't just start with these special women. It has such a knock-on effect, and a lot of them raise some really important points about just kind of how important it is to, you know, in this industry that is traditionally male dominated, but it's being reshaped by women and it's being modernized by women, and it's the women that are taking it forward, which is amazing. And so it's really nice to hear not just the incredible work that they're doing, but also how they want to hold the door open for other women to come forward as well. It's really, really inspiring, and speaking to them was just such a joy.
Yeah, you're so right. And I'd love to hear any of our customers' opinions and thoughts on this podcast. If there was anything that you kind of disagree with, anything you agreed with, or anything you wanted to hear more about. But Lou, thank you so much for joining us. It's been such a fun episode.
Thank you for having me. How was my first podcast?
It was amazing, Lou. You did such a good job. I would definitely have you back. But thank you very much for joining us. We'll see you soon.